So let's see. First of all, rotate the device. All right, well, what's it gonna have to do? So just a little, by the way, I am not going to be able to respond to any comments, so I'll get them after the video is done. I have a limited amount of time and I want to get this up. So I'm going to do a little mending today and hold while I hit publish because I'm putting this on Patreon as well. So, all right, everything's good. As you can see, everything here is what I'm going to be using to patch this hole. I went with a smaller one because I don't have a lot of time and figured smaller was going to be easier for me to just get started. One thing that's not pictured here that I'm going to be using, safety pins! Probably this size right here. I find that this size is pretty good for relatively small holes without being so small that it's obnoxious. And that recommendation, if you want to check out the link to my Patreon, I'll have the post when this thing is done and over with and no longer being recorded. And you'll be able to see all of the notes on my Patreon for tips and other words I have about this project. So a little quick, this is what we're going to be doing. I have my notes stitched into the inside of my embroidery or my mending box. So we're going to turn it inside out, safety pin based, turn it back right side out. I don't know if I'm going to trim the frayed edges. If I'm going to do it, it would happen then, but I'm not sure if I'm going to then. And then I'm going to secure, if I trim, I'll fold over and secure the edges, basically like you see here, where there's a stitch along this edge. And then secure the edges of the patch, which I think I forgot to do last time I mended something, so I'll have to do that. And the last mend, if you'd like to see it, is this one. Although I gotta be honest, I don't think with all the stitching that I need to secure the edges. I think I pretty much did that. So this is just a real simple Sashiko. I've decided that because I'm using a fabric that has a compass on it, that I want to circle. So I'm probably just going to stitch concentric circles around this particular hole. And here we go. So first of all, turning everything inside out. And turning it inside out because I'm going to safety pin here. And it'll just be easier if it's turned inside out. Now, for those who don't know, fussy cutting is when you have a patterned fabric, something like this, and you're trying to cut out a very specific portion. This hole is such that I want space on either side of it, and because I've got this starting over here, I want to cover basically this whole square area I've got here. So I'm going to find one of these and place it right about there. And so that's going to be good. So get my bigger scissors here. And this is not, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. This is just something I'm choosing to do because I want. And if you're curious, this is actually a remnant from making a handkerchief for a close friend. I keep all of my scraps because they're great for mending. And while I can go ahead and cut this, I'm going to do some stitching before I cut it because I don't want to cut it too short and not realize it. And I want to make sure this is centered all the way around. So now comes the fun part, safety pinning this down. And what I'm doing is you're safety pinning this fabric that you're using is what you're doing, which is why I'm using a larger. For the hole itself, something like this, because it's so small, would be better. But because I'm safety pinning a good amount of fabric, I'm just going to use this. And I try to use as many as possible. There are 500 safety pins in this box. So I've got some. And if you're curious, I got it from Michael's. But you can get safety pins all over the place. So, you know, get it wherever you can. And the whole point of this is I've got to baste this, which basting is a quilting term. And it's when you use really big loose stitches to kind of put fabric together, whether it's at a seam or an applique, or when you're doing English paper piecing. And it's just to kind of hold things in place. And that's it. And the important thing about basting is those are temporary stitches. So they're not going to stay. So they don't have to be neat or perfect. They're usually done in a color that's going to show up really well, which is why I've got this pink thread. And let me just go ahead and put this out here. I don't know how long this video is going to be. If I don't finish what I'm doing, there will be a part 2. And I'll see if I can edit the name of this one to reflect that. But I don't know. So there's a lot of fabric manipulation. What's really important when you go to safety pin is don't safety pin the front and back of your garment together. I've done that. If you're working on your lap, don't safety pin it to yourself. It's not going to work out real well. Move some of this stuff out of the way. This is a process. Let me make sure I don't scooch anything off of my table space that I'm working on. And let me just put this out here. I don't usually work on a table. I usually work on my lap or on my desk. So this is slightly awkward for me, but I needed a flat surface to put everything on so you could see what I was doing. And the point of this right here is just to get it together. It doesn't have to be super neat. You don't have to be perfect about it. I'm keeping all of these together because I don't want the fabric to kind of buckle and like do like this and stuff like that, where there'd be a big gap and stuff like that. So I'm gonna move this over too. Move everything over. Well, I brought this damn table over here and I'm taking everything off of it. It's weird. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of moving the fabric around and manipulating it and whatnot. So there's that. And I can't mend anything without stabbing myself at least once. So I think that was my obligatory stab now. Yeah, and which is funny because the whole reason that, you know, I want to use safety pins is right, because I want to minimize the stabbing with myself. And this whole process is not very quick. Mending is great. I love mending. As you can see, there's various mends on these pants. There's one over here. I gotta finish this one. But, you know, mending is part of the slow fashion. You know, it reduces waste, you know, depending on how you do it, because you can certainly make more waste by like buying new stuff. But it is not quick, and it is something that you will have to do over and over again. And I don't say that to scare or discourage you, but I like being upfront and transparent. And I think a lot of people don't realize that like mending isn't a one and done kind of thing. Like that's what had you mend it in the first place, right? It wore out, and so it's going to keep wearing out and keep wearing out, because that's that's what textiles do. So again, we want to make sure that this is really flat and I'm not safety pinning pieces together. I really meant for this to be, you know, a quiet video, and apparently I'm not capable of being quiet. My partner would not be surprised though, right? So there's that. I also find I take a lot of time when I mend. I try to move slower because a good mending job is going to be thoughtful and mindful. It's not going to be rushed. It's not going to be, You know, you don't want it to fall apart immediately. Obviously, it will wear down because the fabric, right, that you're mending itself is going to continue to break down because of its age and its use and wear. And then the mend itself eventually will also break down. Like that's just how it works. And that's fine. No big deal. I've been dying to wear these pants though, and I, truth be told, I've actually worn them without having mended them first, which is part of why they're getting so much worse. Is when you have clothes that need mending, you have to stop wearing them. Like you really do. You stop wearing them, get them fixed, and then go back to wearing them. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you think about it. This is my only pair of jeans on purpose. I don't want to buy another pair of jeans. There's nothing wrong with this. They fit. They've been worn in, so they're really comfortable. And you know, with the exception of them needing some mends here and there, and by here and there I mean a total of 12, one of them done, so now 11. You know, they're good. They're good. So we're down to our last side. And you can do this. You can certainly freehand this. You can do. I've seen people do it with hoop. If you're gonna hoop, though, you need to mend it in a fashion of embroidery, because the hoop being stiff and stretching the fabric taut is going to mean that you can't manipulate it in certain ways. And so that's why whenever I mend without a hoop, because I mend Sashiko style. And you need it makes it easier if you can move the fabric onto the needle. I think these will be my first circles too. I have some curved lines I've done, but I haven't done any circles yet. And I'm still trying to work out mentally how I'm going to do that. How I'm going to get the circles onto there for me to do them. I think if I get one good one, that'll be good. And then I'll just, you know, wing it after that. Just so not like me. I like things planned out and precise. Okay, so I've got a little gap here. I'm going to be fussy and put this here, because I can. And because it's not going to hurt if I do. All right, so I have gotten it all. Sorry about that. I've gotten this all safety pinned down. So now I'm going to baste. And basting, if you want to be eco-conscious and friendly and recycle and reuse, the ends of bobbins, or the sets of bobbins that you see where you don't necessarily know what thread spool it goes to, are great for basting, because when it comes to sewing, which I do as well, you don't want to mix thread in your machine. So you wouldn't want a different weight or age thread sewing on one side of the fabric and then a newer one or a heavy one or a different one sewing on the other one. Because what will happen is that'll cause some issues in your machine. Okay, so I'm not going to double the thread because I don't need to. As you can see, I made it extra long. Like, I measured it out approximately after. And I'm making what is called a quilter's knot. There's a lot of quilting references today, huh? A little bit. And it's just an easy way to make a knot. And because this is temporary, I definitely am going to knot it because I don't want it coming out until I'm ready for it. But as you can see, it makes this tiny, can't see where my own camera is, it's terrible. It makes this tiny little knot that didn't require me to do anything silly. And then I'm just going to sew this patch on. And then I'll be able to take, at that point, after this is done, I'll be able to take these safety pins out. So what I'm going to do, because I want to make sure this is all fixed, is I'm going to sew fairly close to the edge. Again, these are temporary stitches. And it's really important when you do these to not sew through multiple layers of fabric. You know, you want to sew through the patch and the fabric. And I'm going to do this like it's sewn. So, and sewing, it's a type, like when you can embroider this way where you don't really leave the stitches You don't go up and down through the fabric. And I find this is just really easy. So as you can see, the stitches are super, super long and big and loose. So, and please remember, any questions you have, you're free to ask them. But I am not looking at the camera, so I'm not seeing them. And I will address your comments after this video is done recorded. So now we've got one side, we're going on to the next. I'm gonna try and finish this video today. I don't know how likely that is to happen though. My day is pretty full after this. I have something to go do right after I finish. And then I will be busy for the rest of the evening. So I probably will be coming back super late at night. So my apologies. I will get through as far as I can here. And you can use just a regular sewing needle for this. It's nothing fancy. You're just securing the fabric that you're going to stitch over. And however you want to do that, I've seen people glue fabric. I mean, if you want to do that, have at it. I try to not use any kind of chemicals or anything that I have to wash off on here, which is why I'm not using any kind of marking tools that you have to like wash off. And so we're down to our last side. Make sure I have not sewn anything together, and I've been pretty good with that. So hurry! All right, and this is good. This is good. We came out right about where we went in, and that works. And I'll do another quilter's knot here, although the making of this looks a lot like the beginning of a French knot, but I'm not going to go through the fabric. I'm just going to go away from the fabric, and I'm holding the knot down with my finger so that it stays as close to the actual fabric as possible. As you can see, it's right there. Oh my gosh, stop moving it. So it's right there. Scissors. Make sure I don't cut it. So I'm all done. You don't need your sewing thread or needle anymore. Move my scissors out of the way. And now that I have basted this, I can take these safety pins out. So I've got about 10 more minutes to do. I might be able to stretch it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start stitching right after I take all these out. And I take these out because it just makes it easier to manipulate the fabric without them in the way. And I don't need them anymore. So you can leave them in if you would prefer. That's fine. Whatever you want to do, whatever works for you is good. Safety pins, I would say, are a modern addition to Sashiko because I don't know how long the safety pin has been around. But I tell you what, I think it's super helpful. because pins are great, but you usually pin in the direction you're sewing. And when you're pinning a patch around this, you know, you've got multiple sides, so you would have the pin point facing in different directions all across the patch. And it's super easy to stab yourself like that. So let's try not to. Oh my gosh. I haven't done enough sewing if I haven't poked myself with a needle. So there's that, I guess. And as you can see, while it's crumpling and moving and everything, it's not coming away from the fabric that's being patched. Right, so we have turned it inside out, right? We have placed our fabric, safety pinned it, it's basted now. We can turn the fabric back right side out. And you see that I did a terrible job keeping it where I wanted it to, so you could see the design. So that's unfortunate. So I have options here. I can try to move it again. Or I can make the hole bigger, right? That's a possibility. I don't think I should make the hole bigger though, I'm gonna be honest with you. So let's see what we can do to get the hole. Which one was it? I think I was trying to get this one in it, because that's the one that seems to be over. So I have some options. Can try and move the fabric over like this, because the hole is definitely smaller than the design that I'm trying to get poking through, but I really only want it to peek through. I don't want it to, I don't need it to be perfect. So let's see. Okay, so that looks good. What I might do is, this is really what I wanted to do. And this is, you know, I haven't started stitching yet, so I can absolutely alter things if need be. And I think what's going to happen is I'm going to improvise, and I'm going to safety pin with a larger one around the area in 4 places, just to keep this design here. And then I can smooth it out on the other side and readjust. So it pays to double check your stuff before you get started. And mistakes are great to catch on video, because then you have troubleshooting you can do live. Some people get super embarrassed about making mistakes, and I'm just like, that's how art is made, right? Sometimes it's a lot of trial and error. Okay, so, and I want to make sure that this fabric back here, while I'm manipulating it, doesn't get crumpled. Okay, so I want it flat. I don't like quite how that's placed. There you go. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to very carefully put that through there. And this is really just to keep it here. The fact that it's on the outside, like inside, doesn't matter. I'm really just trying to make sure that this is here. And so what I can do is, because I've got this pinned right here, I can turn it back inside out and fix it. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, mending is not a, it's not quick, right? If I wanted to just patch it any old way, sure, I could absolutely I could totally do that. Now, as much as I don't like to waste, we've got limited time, so I'm just going to take this out. And these are going to go in my hot box anyway, so it's fine. And what I'm going to do is then move this patch over. Ooh, where's the end? Okay. And fix it. So, scissors out of the way. Let's make it's in the right place. Excellent. Okay, so now we're good. Now I can rebaste. And I'm not going to bother putting the safety pins back in. I've got one. That's fine. That's good enough. I do need to get my needle, though. It's gone off, too. Right, that is a short thread. That is a longer thread. All those threads are short, so... Pardon me while I maneuver. That's cool too. I am Butterfingers today, apparently. That's fine, I guess. Oh, well, look at that. Apparently, that was the end of the bobbin. That works too. Right, so, you thread the needle. It looks like I'm going to have time to thread and the needle, baste it. And we're going to cut the video off there. And what I will do is after all of this, I will come back at some point today. I don't know when. No promises. I will try to come back today. How about that? That's better. And finish this video. But I will tell you what I'm going to do. So you can be in suspense, right? Because that's real nice of me. So after I've basted, I would turn it inside out. It's a really long piece of thread. This is, I usually wouldn't cut it like this overly long, but what's happened is this is the end of the bobbin, and that's why it's just the length that it is. So we'll just leave it. And I'm going to sew the edges again. And it doesn't matter how you baste. I mean, you could use any stitch to baste. I mean, really, but a basting stitch is just a long, loose stitch. You can baste with a sewing machine, and that means that you put the stitch length at its longest, which is usually a 4 or 5, depending on your specific machine. This is hazard of super long thread, though. Is that then you have to draw all that thread through. But because I'm mending, I'm going to do all this by hand. I do have some machine mending on here, which was just because of, oh gracious, the way I was mending it. That's how you did it, was with the machine. So there wasn't really an option. Oh my gosh, my thread is getting super tangled, which is another reason why one does not simply use super long pieces of thread, okay? Because it gets knotted and tangled up and hard to deal with. But, trying to, not knock stuff over, and not unthread my needle, and not twist things together. It's fun. Okay, so There's a nice good stab there too. That's fun. Yeah, I was supposed to actually do all this mending over the weekend, and that is not what happened. Partially because I spent, I think, several hours doing the mend that I showed you at the very beginning. And it was just a lot to do. Yeah. Slow fashion, because I would like to do better by the planet, and I think that it's just like a good idea. Is a passion of mine, but also something that I'm, I've not spent years in slow fashion. So I still have a lot to learn about what I'm doing. And, not only what works best, but what works best for me, because, it's really easy to say that this is the right way to do things, or this is how it's done, but, that is also has the potential to be very ableist, which is not great. So I'm all for doing things how you can. That's what you need to do. As you can see, this patch was secured down here, but what happened is this patch frayed, and I might have secured it too close to the edge, and so it came loose. And so one of the remends is actually me resecuring this down, or making the decision to cut this edge off, which I'm probably just going to secure it down, because then I'll just put more stitches there, and that's fine. But this happens. So this was a, hey, go a little further in. So as you can see here, these basting stitches are not right at the edge. I could have sewed on them at the edge, but that means that when this starts to fray, anything that's at the very edge is just going to take it off, and it's going to compromise the mend, if you will, which isn't really a huge deal. Okay, so far I haven't sewn anything together. That's cool. That wasn't supposed to be sewn together. Alright, so my baste is almost done, and I will quickly kind of walk you through the last few steps to let you know what's going to what to expect in the conclusion of this video that I will do later. Okay, so we've got our patch. The hole is right there. I can feel the difference in the fabric, so that means that I've placed it right. And what I'll end up doing is I'm going to stitch around here on the outside, and then I'll come back and trim the excess. And that's when I'll also take the basting stitches out. So I'll make another quilter's knot here. Yeah, the quilter's knot, when you like end a thread, it looks a lot like you're starting a French knot, an embroidery, only you don't go through the fabric back to the other side. Alright, so and now I've got this nice long piece for the next time I need to baste something. Alright, so we'll check it one more time before we'll commit to getting started. And there you go. Look, check it out. You've got this cool little design peeking through that hole, which I did intentionally. So this would be considered fussy cutting. I will cut around it so that I can center a specific design. And so to walk you through real quick the next few steps before I jump off of here. Now that it's turned right side out, I can actually take this safety pin out, which I will before I start stitching. And then a lot of times I'll trim the edges. So as you can see, these edges got trimmed here and neatened up. and then I would fold over and secure those edges. For this, I want a real rustic look. And I like this kind of faded, windswept feel that the fray itself gives it. And so I'm not going to cut any of that out. I'm going to leave it right there. What I will do probably, though, is stitch right in this circle, right in the center, to just kind of secure that. I think I'll make a series of French knots, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it'll be fun. And probably in like a yellow or lime green or just a real bright color, so it has a nice bit of contrast away from the blue of the Compass Rose. And then I will start securing all of the stitching here and do around here, and at the very end I will secure the edges of the patch. Now theoretically I could skip all of the decorative stitching that I'm going to go here and then stitch and secure here, stitch and secure here, but I don't want to. And so I'm not going to. And I find that I like to do my center because sometimes I cut this large patch. Like there's some wear here. You can see this lightness of this denim that is worn versus here, right? Which is a bit darker. And so this right here is partially worn, which means having a patch right here is probably a good idea. So I might leave it, but we'll see. And then I've got this spot right here that I'm going to have to do too. So the conclusion of this video will have me stitching. I'm going to think on how I want to put a circle here. Exactly. I'm probably going to look for a cup or something to trace an initial one and then just wing it with all the concentric ones out. And I've decided that's what I want to do, is make concentric circles around here. And I might stop when I get to here and then put another concentric circle and just do circles all over here. That sounds fun, right? But yeah, I gotta go. I've got a errand to run, and then I'm going to be busy for the rest of the evening. So I'll probably pop back on here at some later time today. I'm about to have a lot of distractions in my house, so it's a really good chance that I'm not going to pop in now. And as soon as my partner returns to take over the tiny human, I will be leaving for class. So I will not have time. So we will see how this works out. Thanks for joining me. I'll check out these comments as soon as I end this and get a moment. Thanks for watching. Everybody who watches this later, I will try to get you your comments as soon as possible. I don't check the email that is associated with this count very often. So if I'm delayed, I do apologize. But I have a life and have other things to do. So sometimes I don't get to things as fast as I want to. Like this mending job that I should have done 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah. So, toodles! Enjoy!